What happens when the media decides you're guilty before the courtroom does? Could headlines, public opinion, and viral stories change the course of justice? The case of Amanda Knox became one of the most controversial criminal trials of the 21st century. Not just because of the murder, but because it forced the world to ask, can media shape justice itself? Today, we're breaking down the psychology, media frenzy, and legal controversy behind the Amanda Knox case. In November 2007, British exchange student Meredith Kercher was found murdered in Perugia, Italy. The brutal crime immediately shocked the international community. Investigators searched desperately for answers. And very quickly, attention turned toward Meredith's American roommate, Amanda Knox. Amanda Knox had only been living in Italy for a short time. Alongside her boyfriend, Raffaele Solicito, she suddenly found herself at the center of a murder investigation. As police questioned witnesses, conflicting statements and early investigative theories fueled suspicion. Meanwhile, forensic evidence would later identify Rudy Guede as the person whose DNA was found at the crime scene. Before the trial had truly unfolded, the media had already begun creating its own story. Amanda Knox wasn't simply reported on. She was transformed into a character. Nicknames, circulation, sensational headlines, television debates. Suddenly, the legal case became global entertainment. The press began focusing on Amanda's personality, her appearance, her behavior, even her facial expressions. Instead of discussing evidence, many stories focused on perception, and perception quickly became more powerful than facts. Humans naturally seek simple stories. Heroes, villains, clear answers. But real criminal investigations are rarely simple. When information is incomplete, our brains often fill the gaps with assumptions. That's exactly why high-profile cases become so emotionally charged. Psychologists have long understood that first impressions are incredibly difficult to change. Once the public accepts a narrative, every new piece of information is often interpreted through that same lens. Confirmation bias begins to take over. People notice evidence that supports what they already believe, and ignore evidence that doesn't. One of the biggest lessons from the Amanda Knox case is the difference between evidence and storytelling. Television thrives on emotion, drama, conflict, mystery. Courtrooms require something different: facts, proof, reasonable doubt. As the case gained worldwide attention, online discussions exploded. People debated every photograph, every interview, every rumor. Social media allowed millions of strangers to become unofficial jurors. Long before the legal process had reached its conclusion, lost beneath the headlines were real people: Meredith Kercher's family, Amanda Knox, Raffaele Solicito, and everyone whose lives were permanently changed by the tragedy. High-profile trials often become public spectacles. But behind every headline, there are human lives. The legal process stretched across years. Convictions, appeals, reversals, courtroom debates, new forensic reviews. Legal uncertainty continued for nearly a decade. The case became almost as famous for its legal complexity as for the crime itself. The Amanda Knox case sparked an important question: what responsibility does the media have when reporting criminal investigations? Should news organizations prioritize speed or accuracy, public curiosity or fairness? Those questions remain just as important today. Many experts describe cases like this as trial by media, where public opinion begins forming long before legal decisions are reached. Sometimes, those public opinions become nearly impossible to reverse, even when new evidence appears. The Amanda Knox case continues to be studied by journalists, lawyers, psychologists, media scholars, because it illustrates how criminal investigations can become global narratives shaped by television, newspapers, and the internet. For storytellers, this case offers remarkable lessons. Public perception can become its own antagonist. Media can shape character more powerfully than reality. Truth is often more complicated than first impressions. Bias creates compelling psychological conflict. The most powerful mysteries aren't always about who committed the crime. They're about how people decide what to believe. Perhaps the most important question isn't whether the media covered the case. It's this: how much of what we believe comes from evidence, and how much comes from the stories we're repeatedly told? That's a question that reaches far beyond one courtroom. The Amanda Knox case wasn't just a murder investigation. It became a global conversation about justice, media influence, public opinion, and the fragile relationship between truth and perception. Because sometimes, the biggest battle doesn't happen inside the courtroom. It happens inside the minds of millions watching from afar. If you want more deep dives into true crime, psychology, and storytelling, subscribe, because the most fascinating mysteries aren't always about what happened. They're about why the world believed the story it did.